This is the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. I am Manoj Mainkar, and in the next half hour, I'll bring to you news updates from India and around the world, awareness videos on coronavirus by Government of India, yoga on radio, and a lot more. We'll begin with the news updates.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Namaskar. The news snippets. Read by Maria Albina Michael. 285,637 patients have recovered from COVID-19 in the country till now. In the past 24 hours, 13,940 patients have recovered. The recovery rate is now above 58%. 215,446 people have been tested for COVID-19 in the country in the last 24 hours. Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid tributes to the brave hearts of the Korean War on the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War. The Prime Minister recalled the Indian contribution to the Korean War effort. He also applauded Seoul for its efforts in seeking peace and stability. India has warned China that failure to implement the disengagement understanding on the LAC in eastern Ladakh would have consequences and could lead to negative repercussions in the bilateral ties. The COVID-19 pandemic in the country has entered a natural recession as the share of active cases are declining steadily in the last 2 weeks. The active cases have declined by 8% between 11th and 25th June. The US is reviewing its global deployment of forces to ensure it is postured appropriately to counter China's People's Liberation Army, given the increasing threat to India, Indonesia, the Philippines and other countries, said US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. 1.89 lakh people in Assam have been affected by floods. 9 districts have seen massive damage. 49 relief camps have been set up at Dhemaji, Majoli, Sibsagar, Dibrugarh and Tinsukia districts. Prime Minister Modi to launch Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign in UP through video conferencing today. 1.25 crore returned labourers would be provided jobs in 31 districts in 125 days. The Pakistan Civil Aviation Minister has said that 40% of civilian pilots have fake flying licenses. The revelation came in the aftermath of the deadly crash near Karachi on 22nd May. In the worst-case scenario, US added 40,598 new COVID-19 cases in the country. It was the highest one-day jump in the country that is already the epicenter of coronavirus. And that is the end of the news snippets. The story of my experiment with truth is an immortal book and a legacy for ages to come. This book is the autobiography of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. It is one of the best sellers and is translated in nearly all languages of the world. It is a detailed account of Gandhi, consisting of Gandhi's self-penned essays on his experiments and covers all aspects of the Mahatma's spiritual life till 1920. One of those books that need to be read periodically to remind oneself that someone out there, sometime, thought that transformation, liberation, and plain living without violence is possible. These thoughts seem so old-fashioned, don't they? In this world, some biographies inspire, but the good ones challenge. What would it be like for you and I to fight the biggest battle, the one Gandhi fought, the one that takes place inside of you, within you? Here we have for you the words of the Mahatma in the voice of his youngest grandson, Gopal Krishna Gandhi.
I hastened from the court, not knowing whether my client won or lost her case, but was ashamed of myself and decided not to take up any more cases until I had courage enough to conduct them. But there was another case in store for me at Bombay. It was a memorial to be drafted. A poor Musalman's land was confiscated in Porbandar. He approached me as the worthy son of a worthy father. His case appeared to be weak, but I consented to draft a memorial for him, the cost of printing to be borne by him. I drafted it and read it out to friends. They approved of it, and that to some extent made me feel confident that I was qualified enough to draft a memorial, as indeed I really was. I used to attend High Court daily whilst in Bombay, but I cannot say that I learnt anything there. I had not sufficient knowledge to learn much. Often I could not follow the cases and dozed off. There were also others who kept me company in this, and thus lightened my load of shame. After a time, I even lost the sense of shame as I learned to think that it was fashionable to doze in the court. In the meantime, a Memon firm from Porbandar wrote to my brother making the following offer. We have business in South Africa. Ours is a big firm, and we have a big case there in the court, our claim being £40,000. It has been going on for a long time. We have engaged the services of the best vakils and barristers. If you sent your brother there, he would be useful to us and also to himself. He would be able to instruct our counsel better than ourselves, and he would have the advantage of seeing a new part of the world and of making new acquaintances. My brother discussed the proposition with me. I could not clearly make out whether I had simply to instruct the counsel or to appear in court, but I was tempted. I closed with the offer without any haggling and got ready to go to South Africa. When starting for South Africa, I did not feel the wrench of separation which I had experienced when leaving for England. My mother was now no more. But this time, I only felt the pang of parting with my wife. Another baby had been born to us since my return from England. We are bound to meet again in a year, I said to her, by way of consolation, and left Rajkot. The port of Natal is Durban, also known as Port Natal. Abdullah Sheth was there to receive me. As the ship arrived at the quay, and I watched the people coming on board to meet their friends, I observed that the Indians were not held in much respect. I could not fail to notice a sort of snobbishness about the manner in which those who knew Abdullah Sheth behaved towards him, and it stung me. Abdullah Sheth was practically unlettered, but he had a rich fund of experience. He had an acute intellect and was conscious of it. The Indians held him in very high esteem. He was proud of Islam and loved to discourse on Islamic philosophy. On the second or third day of my arrival, he took me to see the Durban court. There he introduced me to several people and seated me next to his attorney. The magistrate kept staring at me and finally asked me to take off my turban. This I refused to do and left the court. So here too there was fighting in store for me. Abdullah Sheikh explained to me why some Indians were required to take off their turbans. Those wearing the Musalman costume might, he said, keep their turbans on, but the other Indians, on entering a court, had to take theirs off as a rule. The Indians were divided into different groups. One was that of Musalman merchants who would call themselves Arab. Another was that of Hindus, and yet another of Parsi clerks. But by far the largest class was that composed of Tamil, Telugu and North Indian indentured and freed labourers. The indentured labourers were those who went to Natal on an agreement to serve for 5 years and came to be known there as Girmitiyas, from Girmit, which was the corrupt form of the English word agreement. The other three classes had none but business relations with this class. Englishmen called them coolies, and as the majority of Indians belonged to the labouring class, all Indians were called coolies or Samis. Sami is a Tamil suffix occurring after many Tamil names. I was hence known as a coolie barrister. The merchants were known as coolie merchants. The original meaning of the word coolie was thus forgotten, and it became a common appellation for all Indians. The Musalman merchant would resent this and say, "I am not a coolie, I am an Arab," or "I am a merchant," and the Englishman, if courteous, would apologize to him. The question of wearing the turban had a great importance in this state of things. Being obliged to take off one's Indian turban would be pocketing an insult. I wrote to the press about the incident and defended the wearing of my turban in the court. The question was very much discussed in the papers, which described me as an unwelcome visitor. Thus the incident gave me an unexpected advertisement in South Africa within a few days of my arrival there. My turban stayed with me practically until the end of my stay in South Africa. Whilst I was widening the circle of my acquaintance, the firm received a letter from their lawyer saying that preparations should be made for the case and that Abdullah Sheikh should go to Pretoria himself or send a representative. I told him that I was prepared to go to Pretoria. "Where will you put up?" asked the Sheikh. "Wherever you want me to," I said. "Then I shall write to our lawyer. He will arrange for your lodgings there. I shall write to my Mehman friends there, but I would not advise you to stay with them. The other party has great influence in Pretoria. Should any one of them manage to read your private correspondence, it might do us much harm. The more you avoid familiarity with them, the better. I shall stay wherever your lawyer puts me up, or I shall find out independent lodgings. But I do intend cultivating the acquaintance of the other party. I should like to be friends with them. I would try, if possible, to settle the case out of court. After all, Tayyab Seth is a relative of yours." Sheikh Tayyab Haji Khan Muhammad was a near relative of Abdullah Sheikh. The mention of a probable settlement somewhat startled the Sheikh, I could see. "Don't be anxious about that," said I. "I need not talk to Tayyab Seth or for that matter to anyone else about the case. I would only suggest to him to come to an understanding and so save a lot of unnecessary litigation." On the 7th or 8th day after my arrival, I left Durban. A first-class seat was booked for me.
You just heard the words of the Mahatma in the voice of his youngest grandson, Gopal Krishna Gandhi. This program came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. 26 June each year is observed as the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. On this occasion, let us hear what the health advisors and experts have to say.
Namaskar and greetings to the listeners of All India Radio. I am Dr. Vivek Tandon, a cardiologist working in Delhi. As many of you must be aware, today, June 26th, has been declared by the UN as the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. And the theme for this day in this year is Better Knowledge for Better Care. Now, the problem of drug addiction is widespread and insidious, and our country, India, is certainly not free from it. The drug addiction can happen with anyone in any social stratum, whether it is a poor person, a homeless person living on the streets, or it is a rich person living in a mansion. The problem can arise anywhere. And once a person becomes addicted, it becomes difficult for him or her to escape from that net of addiction in which he or she is trapped. In such a situation, the best options available to such a person are knowledge, to seek knowledge about the addiction, and then to seek appropriate care. Now, knowledge about drug addiction, as with so many other things, is very widely available in this era of humankind. Available to us from radio, the medium through which I am talking to you, or television, newspapers, magazines, and even from the internet. Though sometimes the quality or veracity of the information available on the internet may be doubtful, so one has to be a little careful about that. So once a person who is addicted becomes aware of his abnormal behavior or her abnormal behavior and seeks to escape from that trap, then the knowledge will empower that person, and then care can be made available. Now, where is this care available for a drug addict? Well, first and foremost, of course, the care is available from family and friends. If the drug addict approaches the family or a friend with the problem, they are in the best position to help and guide that person. And even if the addict has not sought help from family and friends, they are the first point of contact from which the person's addiction can be detected, because they will become aware of changes in behavior in that person, of erratic behavior by that person, which may lead them to suspect the problem, and perhaps on gentle interrogation and questioning and sympathetic listening, they will find the root cause of that change in behavior, which might be a drug addiction. Once the problem has been detected by the family, and if they are unable to help beyond a certain point, then help can be sought from professionals such as doctors or various NGOs which are involved in de-addiction, or even de-addiction centers in the government sector or the private sector. As a doctor, I know that we are trained to pick up clues about addiction from a patient who may have come to us with other problems. And based on those clues, we can then, with gentle probing and history taking, arrive at a conclusion as to whether the person has a problem or not. And if the person is actively seeking help, then of course we are always there to help the addict with de-addiction strategies and whatever treatment is required for de-addiction. I hope that any of you listening to this talk who have a problem with any kind of addiction will seek help from family, friends, or doctors as soon as possible. Thank you.
Namaskar and greeting to the listener of All India Radio. I am Dr. R.P. Beniwal, specialist psychiatrist working at Department of Psychiatry, Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, New Delhi. Friends, today is World Drug Abuse and Illicit Traffic Day, which is celebrated on 26th June every year. The day is dedicated to eradicating drugs abuse and neutralize the systemic challenges which sustain the illegal drug issues. The theme of this year, better knowledge for the better care. So friends, for youth, if they have knowledge, then they can care better for their prevention of drug abuse. The pattern and trends of substance abuse provides an understanding of the severity of the problem in the community. Psychoactive substance use disorder includes alcohol, opioid means opium, cannabinoids from cannabis, sedatives and hypnotic medicines, cocaines, other stimulants, some hallucinogens, volatile substance and tobacco. Psychoactive substance abuse has considerable detrimental effect on individuals and the society at large and is of greater public health concern in India. Problem of illicit drug use in India are a wide variety of illicit drugs are available in India and their use among youth is a growing concern nowadays. This scenario is due to a combination of basically three specific factors. One is India is a close proximity to major opium producing regions like Golden Crescent and the Golden Triangle, and these triangle makes India vulnerable to transit and trafficking, leading to consumption of opium derivative in various form. Second reason is the internal factor like illicit cultivation of opium means poppy and the diversion from the illicit opium sources into illicit production in the internal or rural areas is the second major concern. And third is the emerging threat of manufactured synthetic drugs, because nowadays there are more use of synthetic drugs and a diversion of precursors chemicals as a major issues. So recent trends indicates that synthetic drugs are now replacing the natural and semi-synthetic drugs that have been abused over the time. Cannabis products are one of the most widely abused substances in India. Cannabis weed largely grows unaided in large parts of the country, and teenagers are using these cannabis weeds more commonly. However, there have been reports that it is also cultivated in the remote hilly terrains. The drug scenario in the country is further complicated by the acceptance of the drug use due to our cultural issues, because in some cultures these are accepted in marriages or in some parties and in celebrations. So what are the reasons for substance abuse? Drug abuse is a complex phenomena. There are several macro and micro issues that determine the use of psychoactive substance in the community. Lack of family supports, emotional supports in the youth, and depression among the mental illness is the main reason. Interestingly, drugs like opioid are also used to increase sexual performance, so it's more interested in the youth. One particular response sums up the entire reason are the main reason for substance use is peer pressure, family environment, social approval of a particular substance, and its availability and accessibility. What are the stigma like fear of police? In general, individuals who use psychoactive substance as well as their families are stigmatized and discriminated against by the society. So we should avoid to use these. Both the health and non-health related aspect of one's lives get affected due to these substances. Accidents, liver problems, deliriums, tuberculosis, cancers are the sum of the health problem due to these drugs. The impact on family members is far more significant and distressing, especially on the spouse and children. There are financial losses due to drugs, family bankruptcy, loss of the peace in the family, domestic violence, stressed relationship between the family and neighbors. There are divorce and separation in spouses, negative impact on their children. The impact is severe, especially in the women in the family. School or college dropout, unemployment, and increasing crime rates to be common in communities where the burden of substance disorder is more. So friends, drugs can land you in a financial crisis. The drugs can destroy your relationship with your family and friends, and drugs can severely harm your brain, memory, and decision makings of yours. So thank you very much and keep listening to All India Radio.
Hi, I am Dr. Aruna Bruta. I'm a PhD in clinical psychology and I retired from the University of Delhi Psychology Department and I'm been practicing since 1965. So I deal with a lot of clients that are addicted to something or the other. Now I am using the word something or the other because there's a large variety of substances on which people have become dependent and are not able to get out of it. This is what I will call drug dependency or substance dependency. So I think that this is a period where there is a lockdown all over the world, gradually opening, reclosing, because the COVID-19 cases are on the rise and therefore more and more people are at home. If you can make your life useful at home, which is very easy.
You are listening to health advisors and experts on the occasion of the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, which is observed each year on the 26th of June. This program came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. You are with us on the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
You are with us on the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you today's commentary, Defence Minister's Visit to Russia. It is scripted by Dr. Indrani Talukdar and read by Kaushik Rai. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's Russia visit is significant not only for India but also for Russia and China, especially when the world is coming to terms with the COVID-19 pandemic. During the 3-day visit, the Indian Defence Minister held talks with the top Russian military brass and attended the Grand Military Parade in Moscow to mark the 75th anniversary of the Soviet victory over Germany in the Second World War. The Indian participation in the Victory Day Parade marked not only a tribute to the great sacrifices made by Russia and other nations in the Second World War, but the significant contribution Indian soldiers had made in the Second World War. The highlights that emerged from Mr. Singh's visit that came in the midst of the escalating border standoff between India and China can be surmised by the participation of a tri-service 75-member Indian military contingent in the parade, where participants from China also participated. The visit also came in the backdrop of the strength and maturity of New Delhi and its policies. The visit also signaled the importance of the special and privileged relationship between India and Russia. Russia is doing a balancing act to diffuse the tensions between India and China. It is important for the Russia-India-China format and also for the other multilateral ones, especially the Shanghai Cooperation Organization SCO and BRICS. The Defense Minister held extensive talks with Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and other top officials under the bilateral defense agreements, especially related to the S-400 missile defense system and the Russian origin platforms such as tanks, combat jets and helicopters. India wants an early delivery of these hardware given the rising security threats New Delhi is facing. Mr. Singh requested for delivery through air rather than by ships. It will help in reducing the distance as well as the duration. Russia has agreed and assured India of early deliveries. Russia had expedited the delivery of certain military hardware to Turkey by airlifting them. Hence, given the special and privileged strategic partnership Moscow shares with India, it should not be a problem to expedite the delivery of the missile defense systems as well as the other strategic military equipment. Significantly, Russia's current defense contracts with India amounts to $14.5 billion, while with China it is about $2 billion. Given the stress COVID-19 has put on the global economy and also America's keen interest to strengthen its defense ties with India, Moscow would not want to risk its defense business with India. The visit of the defense minister amidst the border challenges between India and China, two of Russia's strategic partners, might have raised speculations that it could put China in a tight spot. However, this was not the case. India and Russia, though are special and privileged strategic partners, are independent in their relationships with other countries. New Delhi has never taken the help of any other country in its foreign affairs to take a position on any issue. However, Russia does not want the Indo-China tensions to spiral between its two strategic partners. Moscow hosted the virtual trilateral meeting under the RIC format. The Russian foreign minister made it clear that the RIC format should be strengthened. India also put across her views forthrightly in the virtual meeting. As strategic partners to both India and China, the resolution of tensions is important for Russia as a lot is at stake, especially in the post-COVID-19 situation. RIC is critically linked to the SCO and BRICS, and smoothing of Indo-China relationship is important for Russia so that certain countries are not able to take advantage of it. Moscow would not want to create any space for the West to intervene and drive a wedge in the trilateral format, as Russia's focus is to create a multilateral order and reformed multilateralism. The visit of the defense minister Rajnath Singh once again highlighted the special ties between India and Russia. It will be crucial for Moscow to deliver the defense equipments to India expeditiously to bolster the privileged bilateral partnership. That was today's commentary. Defense Minister's visit to Russia. It was scripted by Dr. Indrani Talukdar, strategic analyst on Russia, and read by Kaushik Rai.
This commentary came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
This broadcast came to you from the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.